So look, we know each other from way back. I think you're probably one of my intros into crypto. Yes.
Yes.
You can.
I can claim one.
You can definitely claim that. No, definitely, because I was in London. I was in investment banking in London, and I heard you were in town through Facebook or whatever it was, Insta maybe, and like, oh, let's hang out. What are you doing here? And you were like, what was that conference?
Oh, it's harking back a few years. It was like
a blockchain thing, Bitcoin.
I don't know, crypto, some random conference in London in the middle of the ICO craze. So it must have been like
16, 17. Yeah, 18.
Something like that.
Yeah, I reckon it was 2018 at the start or something, because I was just finishing up my time in London. But yeah, we worked together in accounting and stuff before.
We did.
PW, can we say that name anymore? I don't know. PwC.
PwC. It was a great training ground. I think both you and I had a really good time there, and still keep in touch with a bunch of people.
Absolutely.
From there.
Really great people that are there and stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, we just didn't get into the tax side of things.
Not so much on the accounting. So, but a really solid foundation for building financial knowledge, reading financial statements, all of that.
And hard work.
Good stuff. Well. It was not super easy work.
No, I remember a lack of sleep. It feels like I was a founder back then, but I didn't own anything.
No, you were doing it for the love.
Yeah.
You were doing it for the love.
Yeah, the peer pressure and stuff, and the drinks on Friday at Paradiso downstairs. So
that was the vibe.
Well, anyway, look, we're going to get started in very long intro here, but we're going to get started with this community, getting to know the community episode number. This is probably 33 or 34, but coming at you soon. And we're back, folks, and this is a Getting to Know the Community episode with Brenda from BlackGold Legal. First, before we get into all of the cool emerging tech blockchain stuff, let's find out who are you and how did you get into this space, even though I just did the we know you. But for the folks that might not know, tell us a bit about your background, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we touched on, you and I met in, probably
2007.
2007, geez. A couple of years ago. Back in PW's days.
Yep.
So after I kind of did my time at PwC, finished my law degree, realized I really loved the law and wanted to get into that space, did the pretty kind of traditional thing, getting a couple of law jobs. I was at a little boutique firm to start with, doing kind of everything from kind of wills, conveyancing, lots of random funds management stuff. Then was at Norton Rose for a couple of years, and then I decided to found BlackGold Legal. And it was kind of just around the time when I founded the firm that, I was kind of, just doing those typical, wondering kind of what my next step is, what do I want to focus my time and attention on. I'd been sort of trained in kind of corporate M&A law, pretty traditional, pretty, super useful skills. But I was like, what else can I do that's interesting? And it was kind of around that time when, I started to hear about Bitcoin, blockchain, played around with some Bitcoin and some Ethereum, just, sending them from blockchain.com wallets to blockchain.com wallets. And was kind of like, this is kind of weird and kind of cool, but let's figure out how this thing works legally. And so that's kind of where the initial rabbit hole story kind of starts. So I've kind of been playing in that space since about 2017, 2018. And so was lucky enough to kind of be there for the ICO hype and craze and downfall and, now NFTs. So, there's been a couple of cycles between then and now. But kind of at the core of BlackGold's practice has always just been to help clients in whatever their business may or may not be. We have a real focus and a real passion to helping small business and, startups that are really that kind of initial foundling little stage where, you may be a subject matter expert in a particular thing, but you don't know how to set up your payroll, figure out how to pay tax, figure out how to do an employment contract, an IP agreement, terms and conditions for your website, everything that is kind of legal touching and related to, we love doing. So we're obviously not kind of experts in absolutely everything, but, we've been there from the start with many of our clients, and I'm very fortunate enough to say that a lot of those clients now are kind of done their, Series A, Series B, Series
Wow.
C.
Okay, congrats.
Of funding, which is really exciting. So they're not kind of little baby companies anymore. But it's really nice to have seen their kind of evolution growing out of, ideas on the back of a napkin all the way through to real businesses spitting out revenue, making some cash, really exciting products. So we mainly play in the kind of technology space, but funnily enough, we also have this really interesting kind of private equity real estate angle as well.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah, it's a bit of a mix. They're very different types of businesses, but again, at its core, it always comes down to helping people set up businesses and helping them with their legal problems along the way. It's kind of as simple as that, but also a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah, if you want the details, you're gonna have to pay, folks. So.
That's how it goes. That's how it goes.
It's interesting because in this the Web3 space, there's a lot of people go, and we even notice, wow, there's a lot of lawyers.
Yeah,
Whether it's the
how good
folks
is
at
that?
Norton Rose or HSF, KWM. We've had folks here from Sterling and Rose, Natasha Bleicher and James.
Yeah.
It's amazing seeing all the different groups out there because whilst you said, you got into this space to try to figure out regulation, we're still trying to figure out regulation.
And I would love for there to be an answer eventually. Hint, hint.
Nudge.
Legislators.
Nudge. I haven't seen it. We've been so busy, and maybe it's come out, but I remember it was supposed to be around the middle of the year. And maybe it hasn't come out because I would have seen it on LinkedIn, given the connections. But Treasury, they did token mapping a few years. It feels like
a few years ago, yeah, for sure.
Months in crypto is years in the real world. But it's, or maybe it's the other way around. But they did token mapping, and then they said in there they're going to do the one on custody and centralized exchanges and asset providers and stuff. Has that come out yet? Have you seen?
Not as far as I know, no.
Okay, fair enough. So still being worked on, but what people were surprised about when they did see the Treasury came out with that other one was that, there's a lot of interesting knowledge here. They know what they're doing. And when you talk to the folks there, they've got degens in a way, that are working in that space. It just so happens that they wear the Treasury, not that they've got a uniform, but they're on that side. But they know the space. So it's going to be interesting to see what this first bit of because I think that they'll probably put out something saying that here's what we're thinking about in terms of the rules and regulations. What's the feedback and stuff? Are you thinking about that kind of stuff already? Are you kind of ready to? Would you submit anything? Do you
I'm
think?
so ready. We submitted a submission to the token mapping paper, which was really good. And to your point, it was awesome to see a lot of detail. It was clear that there's I've met people within Treasury that are super smart. They're really into the space. They're genuinely trying to understand what's going on, and I think they do fundamentally understand the technology. I'm not certain that necessarily applies along all steps of the legislative process, unfortunately. And I think, what Treasury are doing is an awesome starting point, but I don't think that's the kind of be all and end all. I think to get any real movement, we're going to have some actual legislation being proposed. And you might have seen that Andrew Bragg put forward a piece of legislation earlier on this year. I haven't been keeping super up to date with it, but I don't think it's unfortunately gotten anywhere. So I think the point of using that example is, the piece of regulation that Andrew wrote is very well informed, it's very well thought out, but I'm not sure whether there's quite the political impetus and kind of drive to get that through yet.
It takes a bit of time to get something through. It takes a bit of time,
but it also just takes political will.
Yeah.
And people putting up their hands and going, hey, we need this thing sorted out.
I think a lot of people don't even realise that the steps to get something into law, if changes to existing law or brand new law, it's not just one day they'll just go, yep.
That's super hard, man.
The process, read into Parliament, and then there needs to be that second reading and more underlying kind of iceberg below the tip kind of knowledge. People don't realise just how much is involved.
And I think that there's a lot of people within Parliament that do understand crypto and blockchain tech.
Yep.
There's some awesome people that are playing in the industry and that are speaking at events and they're interacting with the community, but I don't think that's the majority of politicians.
No,
and it probably isn't up high enough on their list of priorities. And, when people go for your re-election, they tend to pick issues that are popular and that are going to get votes.
Jobs, employment, the economy.
Exactly. But, to your point, the economy is a really important point, and this could be an amazing opportunity for Australia to propel itself forward years into the future by putting forward some solid regulatory framework. And unfortunately, even back in ICO days, and even today, I speak to clients that come and say, hey, listen, can you tell me a little bit about regulation in Australia?
Yep.
What's it like? We want to set up a business
Yeah.
here. We have this amazing product, this wallet, this NFT collection, this whatever it might be. And I kind of go, I can give you a rough idea,
Yeah.
but there isn't really there's no kind of book that I can give you to say, here you go, Mark, comply with these laws and you'll be A-okay. There is still, we're still kind of trying to shoehorn this new technology into old existing regulation. And unfortunately, that doesn't work perfectly. The Corporations Act was written 20 years ago.
Yep.
It's passed in Parliament more than 20 years ago.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the concepts that are, everyone talks about, financial products, which is, the Australian version of securities law.
Yep.
And it's kind of the question that is asked of a lot of these blockchain and crypto tech projects. There is no very neat categorization of what a token, a blockchain, an NFT, a digital asset does that fits it neatly into a financial product category or specifically excludes it. So as a result, you kind of get this, we're taking a best guess at what we think the regulations say, but there haven't been any test cases in Australia. There's, a couple of actions that actually have mounted,
Yep.
but nothing that's gone through the court system yet. And in addition to that, there's no clear written legislation that we can look at to go, that's what the law says, and therefore this is how we apply it to this new piece of technology. And I just think it's such a wasted opportunity, and it's definitely something that we could use from an economic perspective to attract talent, businesses to set up here, and it would be great to see that, but realistically I don't know if I'm holding my breath for too long.
There's a lot of people that are also holding their breaths and waiting in this space from the builder side of the community because they just want to showcase innovation. They just want the rules to be clearer. And we do know that there are some that take the stance that if something looks like, smells like, acts like a security, then there's certain elements of that. But then that's not always the blanket case for everything in crypto. So you're absolutely right.
Correct.
That there is some nuance to it. So it does make it hard as a builder, but I'm sure that the folks that are in this space, it just means that we've got so much conviction. We can see the future, the writing's on the wall. We've had a lot of the noise dissipate. Now, it's arguable that it comes back every now and then with some other meme thing, and currently I think Friends Tech is that meme, friends.tech, and you see different takes on that from Bankless and others out there. But, when you were there back in the ICO kind of phase and stuff, what was the sentiment like, or when you were first getting in? Did you feel like, because you would have seen a few cycles, right? So where it's hypey and then realism comes in, and it gets hypey again and it gets back to realism. How was that like when you were first getting in? Like, was there a lot of, what was your experience? Did you wonder, like, what is this thing? What's going on? What was that like?
I mean, personally, being a lawyer, I tend to err on the side of being cautious and relatively conservative when it comes to looking at kind of new stuff that's coming up. But the feel was definitely, very similar to DeFi summer, right? So,
Wow, okay.
Everyone was buying all of these random coins. Everyone had a token that they were issuing. I spoke to like so many people that had I remember distinctly some dude that I spoke to in London was trying to like tokenize a gold mine that he had in Guinea or something. It was like some Russian
Okay.
dude, definitely not sure if it's super above board, but wherever you are in the world now, I hope he's doing well. So I think it was very similar to what we saw with DeFi, for example, where everyone kind of was just launching these things and putting tokens out there just to make a quick buck. I remember going to a bunch of conferences where there was these 20-year-olds literally standing on stage talking about how they'd raised like $50 million to launch some token project, and of course the majority of them have kind of gone to zero. But what I think the learning is from these cycles is that this is just part of the ecosystem and it's part of the technology, and this has kind of happened time and time again, not only in crypto, but in financial markets, in product markets, in retail. There's fads, there's trends, there's people that get ripped off, there's businesses that lose out. But through that comes innovation. And, you have to have, a number of failures before you succeed. So, it's very similar to the start of the internet. How many
Agreed.
Nigerian print scams were there, and still are out there.
Cybersecurity wasn't what it was and stuff back then. We've
Right.
had the evolution. Yeah.
Exactly. And everyone, remembers was it the $1 Million Pixel page where they were selling
Yep.
pixels on some web page? Anyway, so I think the point is that I think that crypto just has had a much, shorter lifespan, but also because of the technology, how much faster it moves.
Yep.
We have an entire, brain calculator thing sitting in the palm of our hand every day.
Exactly.
So as a result, things move and iterate much more quickly, which just means that it's concentrated and a lot more focused. But I think the message at the end of the day is that that's how you get innovation, and that's how you get real change. And you can either kind of sit around and go, oh, that's a bit shit, people lose their money, and it's not great for people to lose money, but also that's how you learn.
Yeah.
And that's how you get innovation out of it, and that's how you get new regulations, and hopefully how you also, businesses like Airbnb and Uber were skirting around the law and testing its limits for a long time.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But now you probably couldn't imagine traveling without using Airbnb, right? Same thing, you go to any foreign city, I just click on my Uber app and hey, here's an Uber, I can jump in and I don't have to worry about a taxi or where to get it from. It comes, picks me up, it takes me to my Airbnb and I can have an amazing holiday. Like that didn't used to be the case 15 years ago, right? So I sort of look at those examples from, just technology in general that make me really hopeful for blockchain tech and crypto generally. But I think, we're just going to have these cycles that seem a lot more condensed purely because of how the technology is. And there will, just like with any new technology, there's always going to be people, unfortunately, that are looking to do the wrong thing, that are looking to make a quick buck. But I think we just have to keep persisting beyond that. And it's really the projects that are now, in crypto winter or whatever you want to call it, it's the projects now that are building, developing, scaling, growing, testing are going to be the ones that are going to come out in the next, bull run. And there's going to be a lot of excitement yet again.
Absolutely.
And the conference is going to be pumping yet again.
Yep.
And, we'll strap on him for another wild ride.
That's it. That's what it's all about. You talk about like volatility and stuff there. People see this space, oh, it's so volatile. Yeah, if you stretch that out, it just looks like normal slow-paced growth of other things that haven't been as fast. Like they've had their up and down cycles.
Yep.
It just seems like it's crazy and volatile because we're doing it in a really fast way, which I would argue is even better because we get to the better results sooner. Something that, for example, they go, oh, well, what's crypto done? It's only been 10 years. Are you kidding me? It's
A lot.
it's done so much in that space. Let me show you how. So absolutely amazing. So one of the things that's interesting is that I wear the hat of community running, these meetups and stuff and doing podcasts like this. And then we also raise capital for folks that don't know. So if you've got something interesting out there, we raise capital. But we also build. And,
right.
as you're talking about builders in this space, some of the things we've done, people have seen. We were part of the RBA pilot project. This is my not centralized hat. We use digital escrows because it's so much easier and cheaper to do it when normally you would have escrows. It's very expensive and costly and stuff. And
Definitely.
so we also did zero knowledge proofs on top of that so that if we're doing a deal in the construction industry, people outside can't see that deal because normally if you click on someone that you've dealt with on a block explorer, you can see their address and then you can see all of their history of transactions. So we need zero knowledge proofs. And we're doing stuff in AI. We're doing a few things.
Just a couple?
Just a couple.
Yeah.
That's just Tuesday. But what if someone's building stuff in this space and they've just been building and not even been looking at the regs? Obviously that's the wrong kind of thing to do. But what kind of advice do you give to people? Like, what do we need to look out for if someone might be out there that's just got an inkling of an idea and they're like, oh, I'm just not sure if I need to go into it? I'd encourage them to come in and test. But like, what do you kind of say to these startups like us, for example?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think naturally as developers, builders, technologists, like you want to be out there building and tinkering and playing away with the technologies
Yep.
for as long as possible,
Yeah.
right? Because that's really where you're going to find out what features work, what products work, what tech stack works best for you, what piece of code does this, what blockchain does what you think you need it for. So I think it's really artificial to sit back and say, oh, as soon as you start a project, you need to get legal advice and you need to incorporate a company. That's probably the technical legal answer.
Yeah.
But I really believe in giving people help that they will actually implement in practice and that they can use. So I've always kind of been a big believer that as soon as you sort of start thinking about commercializing something
Yep.
or bringing in partners that you're working with,
Okay,
whether they may be capital partners, they
Sure.
may be, starting up a business with 4 friends that are each bringing something to the table. Someone does marketing, someone does, building the technology, someone else does the finance, someone else does, I don't know, the accounting. So I think as soon as you sort of start dedicating a pretty good chunk of time
Yep.
that would feel
Yep.
like it's a pretty big hit if something went wrong with it. It's a pretty loose legal answer and probably not the technical right one. But that's I think with the time where you kind of need to start speaking to
Interesting.
lawyers, accountants, tax people, and that's kind of the thing that we've found as well is that a lot of decisions with structuring, at least in Australia, won't just be driven by what is the legal framework within which you're operating, right? So we normally tend to work together with accountants and tax advisors
Okay, yeah.
to make sure that what you're setting up, whether it's a company, a trust, whatever structure you're kind of going with for your business, makes sense for you as a founder or you as a company, and that can't just be done in a vacuum. Because hopefully, you'll sell the business in 15 years and you'll be a squillionaire. There's tax implications, there's capital gains.
Squillionaire in a few years' time might not be worth that much. You'll
No,
have
it's
a
probably
squillion,
$1.
little
Yeah.
meme-y kind of tokens that's worth $1.
A
But
squillion pepper coins.
yeah, but hopefully you do well, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if that's going on and stuff, then I guess the problem, we can't get rid and just have zero problems. That's unrealistic. That's not how life works. That's not how businesses work.
It's 99 problems, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And crypto is just one.
It is just one.
But, hopefully as they grow, they can also, as those problems come up, they will be bigger problems because they're a bigger company, but they can get that great advice.
Definitely. And I think the structuring is sort of one side of things. But then I think as soon as you're thinking about launching a product and putting it in real life,
Yep.
not to just a little test net with your friends or outside of sending it to a couple of people in your group to be hey, do you like the look of this NFT thing, or I'm thinking about doing this, or I'm thinking about doing that. As soon as you sort of start putting things out into the public domain, I'd have a pretty hard think about what you're doing there and kind of what legal implications there might be to that. I think it's pretty artificial to say, hey, listen, as soon as you put anything on a on a GitHub or on a test net, that it's necessarily going to have all these implications. It may, but I also don't want to give the shitty lawyer answer of oh, it depends. It's yeah, man, of course it depends. But what's really important is to kind of consider that as soon as you're making an offer to the public at large,
Yep.
it's probably worthwhile having a think about the terms that go along with that token, what you're saying the product does. Is it a DEX? Is it a NFT collection? Is it a token that changes from a derivative to a spot? EFT. I don't know. So I think as soon as you start putting things out into the world, it's probably a good idea to touch base. So yeah, I think definitely the structuring kind of initial point,
Yep.
and then the launching of a product is probably definitely the two kind of key touch points. Obviously, it's always a continuum, but I've also kind of strongly believed in getting advisors that you trust in early.
Yep.
And thankfully, there's lots of people out there that would happily sit down and have a coffee, spend an hour, I'm sure that you do this all the time, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Come in and have a chat to us.
Yep.
And it may often be the case that sometimes, you're not ready, the company isn't ready, or the business isn't ready, or you haven't quite figured out what you're going to do yet. Maybe it's just an idea in the back of a napkin, right? But I fundamentally believe, and I think that there's a lot of people out there in the blockchain tech system, but also just generally in technology, that are willing to just give up, an hour of their time and be like, hey, tell me about your project, what's going on, what are you thinking? And even just kind of having someone else to bounce that type of idea off of can be really helpful. And at least then you can have, someone sort of there in your corner from early on to help you out with issues as they arise. And also to kind of also give you, I guess, an idea of, hey, here's some kind of like legal structuring or some terms and conditions stuff to like think about as you're building this thing. You may not have the answer for it right now.
Yeah.
You might not have the money to invest in like getting legal advice, getting accounting advice, but at least, here's a roadmap. Start, building it into your budget if you're going to raise some money, if you're going to, whatever you're sort of going to do. I think it's always helpful. I think if I was starting something in a field that I didn't really know about, that's definitely the first thing that I would do, buy a couple of nice lunches and a couple of coffees to some people and ask for introductions and just kind of spitball the idea with as many people as you can. If it's really important, maybe get an NDA in place, but
Definitely. All of those things are absolutely true, and this is a space where you can do that because people are willing and friendly, whether it's the lawyers, the accountants, the tax folks, and others like marketing and other consultants. People are
PR
willing.
people.
Absolutely. People are willing to talk because we all believe in this ecosystem. We are all early enough. It's not I thought we were, I was like, oh, we're getting in this crowded space. There's all this noise and stuff. It's like, no, it's still way early. If people are worried about the gold rush going away, you can still build the picks and shovels. You can still be part of this change that's happening. So I think that's absolutely spot on and great advice. Why don't we get to where you see this space going? I mean, we spoke about, regulation. We need some clarity and stuff there. And but apart from like that, from a legal perspective, or even just like how this tech is used in the world and stuff and across business, like what's your crystal ball on that, and where can I get a crystal ball?
I don't know where to get a crystal ball. If I had one, I'd probably be a squillionaire by now. But where do I see this space going? I think just like any novel piece of technology, it's going to need some kind of killer app, and it's going to need to be easy for people to use. I need to be able to like tell my grandma to go and get some Bitcoin, or that I'm going to send her some Bitcoin and she's going to be able to do it. So I think until we get to that stage of adoption of kind of technological development, I think we're still going to be in this like infancy type of phase, which is exciting because it means that there's still a long way to go. But I think until you kind of get people to like use crypto or blockchain tech without knowing that they're using blockchain tech, I think we'll still be in that kind of early stage of the technology. And I'll give you a really good example. Like,
please,
I use, like my credit cards on my phone. I got to be honest with you, I don't really know how that works. And to be honest, I don't really care. Like, I use it, it's on my Apple Pay or it's on my phone. I tap it, it confirms the transaction, and I walk away. So I think until we get to that stage of ease of use, of being able to tell, anyone kind of passing on the street, regardless of the level of technical savvy, knowledge, education degree, race, background, whatever, here's a really easy thing to use and it helps you because XYZ. I no longer carry physical cards because I can just use my phone to tap everything and everywhere. So I think until we get to that stage of the user interface being super seamless, the user experience being super seamless and unclunky, I think we'll still be in the early phases. But the early phases are also fun, right? Like that's where you get cool products and like wacky token farming shit and like, I don't know, all sorts of like wacky stuff happening and, Bored Apes and...
But those wacky ideas, there's innovation in there.
There is.
Like it might not be the whole of the idea, but part of that. You're right on the ease of use kind of thing. I think people don't have the, like, what's a Web 2 experience, for example, right? It's log in, Gmail, pick one of the existing Gmail accounts, click I'm in. We don't have that necessarily in the majority of crypto. And I know that
Yep.
there are those trying to account abstract and make it easier to do that sign in. But with that, you give up some self-sovereignty, which was an important part, that you know your public, you've got your public key, you've got your private key, you have your seed phrases and stuff like that. But there's a lot of people where that's just not easy. I'm not saying that there's no merit to it. Absolutely, there is merit to self-sovereignty, and we're building things in the space, and we put stuff open source to make it so that people can be more self-sovereign. But we haven't, going back to your earlier point, we haven't had that kind of mainstream moment for things. Like, look at AI, ChatGPT. Just here you go, type in this message box and you get something back. People, super easy to use. And
Yep.
there's a bit of logging in involved and stuff, but we need more thinking like that, and we need to make it easy. And I don't think we have to be pragmatic, because if the only way to be self-sovereign is to have this, memory of like the 12-word seed phrase of fish, horse, cow, apple, whatever it is.
You haven't memorized yours?
I have, it's somewhere. It's etched into a tree that I will only tell. But or someone's got it in the permafrost in Alaska or whatever. But if we've got to have an easier way, and it's obviously a balance, right?
Yep.
People are still going to use centralized kinds of things, and I think if we give people the optionality, here's something easy to use, but you give up a bit of like privacy or self-sovereignty, I mean. But here's something that's harder, and if you want to go down that path, you can. I think that the main thing is options, but I've no doubt we're going to see innovation in that space, and it's going to get easier.
I really hope so too. But I think to your point, it's about optionality, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I really wanted to like self-custody like my cash in my
Yep.
bank account,
Yep.
like I probably could. It'd be a real pain in the ass, but like I could probably find a way of withdrawing it all out of CBA, finding some mattress to like stuff it into, and there you go, self-custody of cash. But just like any new technologies, there's going to be a continuum, right? Same with people that use email, Gmail, all these products. Like, there is a choice and a toss-up, right, between how far along the spectrum do you want to go, and what are the features that are important to you, and what are the features that are important to me, because they may
Yep.
be super different things. What I think is really, really important as part of all of that consideration, though, is being able to give a level of informed consent.
Yeah.
Because I feel that, and this is, if we think about how, I guess, let's just take a really good example, a topic like data privacy, right?
Okay.
I think that there was this time, call it in like the mid 2000s to, say early 2010, where everyone was tossing up, we're giving information to Google, Apple for the sake of having convenience, right? And I think a lot of people didn't realize what they were actually giving up.
Yeah.
Putting their information on their iPhones and their Gmail and other products that were really convenient to use. And then, we've had this kind of resurgence now back to owning our own data, concerns around data privacy, data breaches, data leaks. There's hundreds of examples out there, right? So we've kind of done a bit of a 180 when it's come to, the balance between convenience and giving up your information. There's lots of crypto projects out there that are all about remunerating people now for giving up that data, but some people want to do that.
Yeah.
Some people want the convenience. But the important thing there is being really clear what you're doing and what you're giving up for the sake of convenience.
Yeah.
And I think if a customer, like an everyday person off the street, isn't able to understand what they're giving up for their convenience, for their ease of use, for their financial return, then they can't make that informed choice.
I think that's really key, like that they have that information and we find ways to share that. And look, there's going to be plenty of people that are going to want the insights that you've got here. So if people want to get in touch with you, I mean, what are the best ways?
Yeah, look, hit me up on LinkedIn, Brenda Saveluc. I'm also Brenda at blackgoldlegal.com. We've also got a really exciting new law firm on the way.
Oh, wow.
Which
Okay.
is, launching in another couple of months, called LawChain. The website's up, which is going to be purely just focused on the blockchain tech and crypto space. So my co-founder Ethan and I are in the process of getting that up and running. We're going to be doing some really cool projects, launching our own blockchain, our own smart contracts, doing some coding stuff. You know, it's
Wow.
obviously not like my expertise, but you know, if you want to get involved or if you're
Yeah, there
keen
you
to
go,
find
folks.
out more, hit me up on LinkedIn or through email,
We'll put the links in the show notes right here too.
please.
All right. Well, Brenda, thank you so much for your time. This is a blast from the past for me, but
Indeed.
we'll see you again soon.
I really hope so. Thanks for your time, Mark.
Cheers.